At the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, we believe it's crucially important to address sustainable food systems. WBCSD itself supports the private sector, 200 member organisations, to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have in WBCSD our Climate Smart Agriculture programme. The reason we've set up this programme is because we know that by 2050 we will have to produce 50% more food for 10 billion people than what we have today. We know that agriculture is the most vulnerable sector to the impacts of climate change, but we also know that agriculture is responsible for around a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions. And so the climate smart agriculture approach is to address all of these three issues together. Now, at WBCSD, the reason that we think this approach is very powerful is really for three reasons. Firstly, we bring the private sector in terms of the whole value chain to the table. So it's the retailers, the food companies and brands, the traders, the agri-businesses, and the input companies in the whole system. And we think that that value chain approach is key. Secondly, we believe that good partnerships are necessary. So this session that we've been having today around the importance of sustainable rice shows that for these solutions to be scalable, we must have the public sector, the private sector, civil society, and research to the table. Thirdly, the reason why the Climate Smart Agriculture Programme at WBCSD is doing a lot is because we're regional and we get stuff done on the ground. We recognise that while we have to come together to agree on how these things are changed at organisations, at events like COP24, we know that regional approaches in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in the countries and in the landscapes where it has to happen, must be brought to the table first. So at WBCSD, that's our approach. Get the private sector to the table, get the partners working together on sustainable food systems, but make sure that that's scalable in the regions and the landscapes that need it most. Transformational change is something that takes time. For us at WBCSD, the first thing we need a clear narrative amongst all of the private sector to come together to agree on the issue. So if you look at the example of food systems, our member companies have agreed that at the moment the food system is broken. Why is it that there are 800 million people, particularly farmers at the bottom of the value chain, that often go to bed hungry every day, and yet there are over 1 billion people who overconsume at the other end of the value chain? On top of that, a third of food is wasted before it even reaches our plate. This is unacceptable, and it's agreed by our member companies of this issue. So once you agree on that, then you can start to have transformational change to identify, like I say, the projects that we think are going to make a difference. We have to address climate change, we have to address biodiversity at the same time, but we have to also put this in a human lens. Food systems are all about how farmers can change and how farmers can feel confident that by changing a particular practice to improve opportunities for the environment, that they're also giving themselves opportunities for their family and for the wider community and their livelihoods. So I think to end that the World Business Council for Sustainable Development sees partnership with the Global Environment Facility as crucial to scale up sustainable food systems globally. But we also think that we need the involvement of governments, of all of the private sector, of wide research institutes, and so we call on all of the multilateral institutions beyond just the Global Environment Facility to come to the table and talk about food systems in a sustainability spotlight in order to make a change that's needed for millions of smallholder farmers, but also billions of people around the world who need to eat and consume more sustainably for a sustainable future.